This is Economy Watch, what you need to know about New Zealand's economic life today. Brought to you by interest.co.nz.
Kia ora, and welcome to Friday's Economy Watch, where we follow the economic events and trends that affect Aotearoa. I'm David Chaston, and this is the international edition from interest.co.nz, and today we lead with news policymakers are still struggling with the last mile gains in their war on inflation. But first, the number of Americans making initial jobless claims rose last weekend by slightly more than expected. That takes them back to early June levels, and while not high, it does arrest the recent reduction trend. And there were less claims in the same week a year ago. It is too early to say if this is a labour market turning point or an outlier. There are now just under 2 million people on these benefits. And the fully fed factory survey in the US rose sharply to its best level in 4 months, driven by new orders. The outlook for the next year was especially positive there. And Japanese exports rose to a 3-month high in June, and much better than anticipated. While not a record, these exports are an historically high level and only bested by 2 previous months in the past year. They're up more than 5% year on year and delivered a surprise trade surplus. That is mainly because energy costs no longer swell their import bill. And India's central bank is turning its attention away from supporting breakneck economic growth to controlling inflation. They signalled this in a bulletin released yesterday and a return to the policies of Raghuram Rajan, the ones he got removed for by Modi. The ECB monetary policy review overnight delivered no change to their official interest rate settings. They are holding their restrictive policies because inflation pressures remain and wage gains seem to be driving these. European companies are suffering decreased profitability because they're unable to pass on these elevated costs, they say. But they reckon the pressures will be temporary until inflation is beating. They still seem very unsure when rate cuts will happen, however. In Australia, their employed workforce expanded by 50,000 in June to 14.4 million people. 43,000 of those new jobs were full-time and 6,800 were part-time. Their jobless rate rose marginally to 4.1%. And their participation rate is still hovering around 67%. Their employment rate of their working age population is just 64.2%. And container rates were little changed last week, but that is of no comfort because they're staying 286% higher than year-ago levels. The usual factors remain in play, although the Panama Canal water levels are recovering and back to 5-year average levels. July is when these levels usually start to recover. Bulk cargo rates are little changed from a week ago, although they did rise modestly in between before retreating yesterday. And we probably should note, again, that the copper price is still retreating hard, down 7.5% in the past week alone. The reason relates to the demand out of the stuttering Chinese economy. Nickel, cobalt and lithium are all suffering too, all components of the green transition. The US Treasury 10-year yield is now at 4.19% and up 5 basis points from yesterday. And the price of gold will start today up $2 at $2,455 an ounce and still hovering near its all-time highs. And oil prices are up 50 US cents at just on $82 a barrel in the US, while the international Brent price is just over $84.50 a barrel. And the Kiwi dollar starts today little changed at 60.6 US cents. Against the Aussie, we're also little changed at 90.2 Australian cents. And against the euro, we're still at 55.6 euro cents. That all means our trade-weighted index starts today at 69.4 and essentially unchanged from this time yesterday. And the Bitcoin price starts today at $63,799 and down 0.9% from yesterday. Volatility of the past 24 hours has been modest at just on plus or minus 1.4%. You can find links to the articles mentioned today in our show notes, and you can get more news affecting the economy in New Zealand from interest.co.nz. Kia ora, I'm David Chaston, and we'll do this again on Monday.